things, I again am just really, really excited to introduce our new facilitation team for this community of practice, the team at Pinnacle Prevention. So we have Jesse Gruner, Shelby Thompson, and Parker Filer. When they put in their proposal to lead this community of practice, I was so excited because we've been building relationship over the last couple of years, and I had just really respected and honored the work that they had done in leading the local food purchase assistance program in Arizona. So really delighted to have y'all, and I am officially handing over the facilitation leadership to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Susan, for the virtual handoff. Hi, everyone. We're just so excited to be and honored to be in this space with you. We know we have incredibly big shoes to fill with Susan, who's created, along with the facilitators in the past, have created a really good formula that we are hopefully just plugging and chugging, but really excited to be in this space with you all today. Well, we're just going to spend a couple of minutes talking about who we are at Pinnacle and kind of a little bit about us as facilitators, and then we'll get into our regular scheduled programming. So, just quickly, who Pinnacle Prevention is. We are a 501(c)(3) nonprofit. We're based in the Phoenix metro area, but we serve the entire state of Arizona with a mission to cultivate a just food system and opportunities for joyful movement. We do that through a variety of different things. Policy, programming, and planning is how we like to describe it. So you will find us in lots of different spaces in farms, farmers markets, community sites, community centers, retailers. You'll also see us driving around all over the state. And then you'll also see us meeting with city council members, with our state representatives, and also in Washington, D.C. So we are really fortunate to be able to take a lot of the wisdom that we gain from the programs that we operate. We have 9 different food assistance types of programs that we operate, and we take all the knowledge that we gain from that, and that really is critical for informing the policy work that we get to do. So just a couple of snapshot pictures of who we are. We're from the great state of Arizona, which we have teammates all throughout the state. So that's been a really lovely thing. Arizona farming is really interesting and very diverse, and we have the longest farming season, I think. We don't have an off season. We farm all year long, and it's very common to see farms in the middle of deserts. We have also 22 federally recognized tribes in Arizona, so we have a lot of the greatest population of indigenous farmers in our state. So we get to see lots of different terrains and lots of really ancient techniques that we get to experience. So we are excited to bring some of that to you all, and we do operate the Double Up Food Bucks program in Arizona. We operate the Farmers Market Nutrition Program. Parker's going to talk a little bit about the LFPA program we offer. We also partner with our Arizona Department of Agriculture on the RFSI program, and also dabble in farm to school, dabble in SNAP Ed. So we really kind of cross the gamut of a lot of the food systems work that we do. One program that I wanted to highlight here in this beautiful picture of this van, we also were really fortunate to receive a housing type of grant a couple of years ago during COVID. We were able to purchase a fleet of 9 refrigerated vans that we lend out to farmers across the state for free, since we are the 5th largest state. I know it's hard saying that with having Alaska and Texas also in the room, but you all know, getting food to different places of the state, especially when we have a lot of rural areas, is challenging. And so we loan these beautifully artist drawn vans out to our farmers that they can rent and use for free. So it's another program that we very, very much is beloved. I am going to turn it over to Parker, and he's going to talk a little bit about who he is, and then Shelby will share a little bit, and then I'll share a little bit of who we are and who we bring to the space as facilitators. So, Parker.
Yeah, thanks, Jesse, and thanks, Susan, and thanks everybody for being here. My name's Parker Filer. I joined the Pinnacle Prevention team about 2.5 years ago, specifically to help our partners at the Arizona Food Bank Network and the Arizona Department of Economic Security marshal LFPA funds to our farmers in food insecure communities across the state. But before that, well before that, I got my start in food systems just eating tomatoes off the vine in Pennsylvania where I grew up, learning how to farm with my parents and grandparents and extended aunts. But subsequently, I've studied plant and soil science. I've worked in food systems, on food waste reduction, food rescue, cooperative extension, teaching farms, just nibbling at different parts of this puzzle we're all working on together over the years. And with that, I'll toss it to Shelby.
Thanks, Parker. Hello, everybody. It is so lovely to be here with you today. My name is Shelby Thompson, and I use she, her pronouns. Similarly to Parker, I've had the pleasure and honor to work in many different parts of the food system, including journalism, community supported agriculture, and now in public health and network management. Currently, in my role at Pinnacle Prevention, I am the manager of the Arizona Food Systems Network, which is a community of local, state, and regional food systems advocates, practitioners, and leaders who work together to improve the food system for all Arizonans. And in my role with the Food Systems Network, you'll often find me facilitating work group meetings, leading many different planning efforts, and weaving together the different people, projects, and ideas across our statewide food system. I am deeply passionate about developing holistic food systems and feel really excited to help create a container for all of us in this room to advance and deepen our practice around farm to food assistance work. So thank you for having us today, and I'm excited to get to know you more. I'll pop it over to Jessie.
Hey everyone. Again, Jessie Gerner, use she, her pronouns, and I am originally from Albuquerque, New Mexico, and then moved out to Arizona to continue some schooling. And I've just stayed in the Southwest. I have such a deep love for the Southwest and also love to get to go explore new places. But my roots are definitely here in the Southwest. And my background is actually in research and policy research specifically. I'm a dietitian by training, and I've done a lot of nutrition policy research over the years, and that's led me to being able to work with Pinnacle, and I am our director of policy, so I do a lot of our policy work as well, and kind of just get to float around to all the places where I'm needed with our team, and just have a really broad kind of experience, I guess, in the work that we do at Pinnacle. So happy to be helping and supporting Parker and Shelby as co-facilitators in this space. And I think that's enough about it. Oh, wait, sorry, one more thing. Wanted to just share about LFPA, like what brought us here to begin with. I like think back to some of the very like these last 2 weeks felt very reminiscent of COVID days and for very different reasons. But it made me like reflect on when we first came to this community of practice, and it was when we were trying to transition between the, Farmers to Family Food Box program into LFPA. And we are so incredibly grateful for this space for helping us learn from so many partners in this room of how to develop a really successful LFPA program. And we are just winding ours down, as Parker's going to share a little bit about our program in Arizona, but very much credit this space specifically for the success that we were able to have and very early on with our state. I can very wholeheartedly say if it was not for this community of practice, we would not have the program that we have in Arizona. So that's some of the history that we are also bringing, just being able to be with you all. That's been so valuable, and we hope that we can continue to hold the space for that continued value as we move forward. So I'm going to turn it back over to Parker for a little bit of a overview on what LFPA and what that looks like in Arizona. Oh, sorry, I'm turning it over to Shelby very quickly for how we approach facilitation before we talk about LFPA in Arizona. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Shelby.
No worries. I thought I might get out of this one. No, I'm just kidding. Thanks so much. Yeah, just really quickly, I would love to share a little bit more about our facilitation approach to help y'all understand what this space might look and feel like over the next 6 months. So first and foremost, we are taking a team approach to our role as facilitators in this space, meaning that you'll see Parker, Jesse, and me sharing responsibilities of facilitation, planning, and support in these calls. No matter who is doing what at any given time, we all have a set of shared values and a core framework for how we like to approach our work at Pinnacle Prevention. And I think the first thing I wanted to share is just that One of our core values is making sure that friends, pets, family members are all welcome in these spaces, especially since the pandemic. We are working in different spaces and we might have little ones crawling around. We might have pets jumping up on the desk during meetings. And we just love to see the different folks and animals and creatures that you're sharing your lives with. And so please know that those are always welcome here. And we also welcome you to take care of yourselves throughout the course of the meeting, whether that being grabbing a snack or taking a bio break or doing what you need to be safe and comfortable. Our organizational values are compassion, respect, collaboration, accountability, and justice. And in our work, we center safety, relationship, building, joy, creativity, and action. And we really value your time, amplify multiple voices, and approach differences with curiosity. When conflict or challenging situations arise, we apply trauma-informed approaches that preserve group dynamics and keep complex conversations moving forward. We also strongly believe that the only path to healing ourselves and the systems at the core of our work is through a deep commitment to obtaining social, environmental, and economic justice for all. And as farm to food assistance practitioners ourselves, we have a stake in the game and care really deeply about supporting, amplifying, and expanding this work. And we want you all to know that we're in it with you, and are committed to making sure that farm to food assistance is sustained and grows over time. Importantly, we also believe that joy, celebration, and levity are crucial pieces of sustaining ourselves and this challenging work. These are heavy times, and so we welcome these things often in this space, and hope that you will laugh along with us and enjoy the silly memes and gifs that we put into our presentations. And then lastly, we're committed to approaching this work with sincerity, humility, vulnerability, compassion, and without perfection as we continue to grow and learn. So giving each other and ourselves grace throughout the process is really important to us. And we can't wait to get to know you over the next 6 months. So thank you so much for letting me give my little spiel. And I will now pop it over back to Parker so he can share more about LFPA in Arizona.
Yeah, thanks, Shelby. And here's to doing it without perfection. That's a good segue for me. But yeah, we wanted to take a minute just to talk specifically about some of our recent involvement with F2FA work. And I know LFPA has been a huge part of this community of practice. As Jesse mentioned, it was a huge resource. I think I was in my position 2 weeks when I joined the COP. And it's been just an absolute treasure trove of resource, support, insights, and frankly, like really good examples to pull from. So on this slide, I just wanted to aggregate real briefly in summary. We were working with the Arizona Department of Economic Security and our peers in the space at the Arizona Food Bank Network in pursuing LFPA. So we submitted our proposal in August, I believe, Jesse, is our institutional memory on the call today. But we didn't get the funds in the state until effectively March or April of 2023. So we were one of the last states to get funding, but I think we were all chomping at the bit, so we hit the ground running. And together with Arizona Food Bank Network and our partners in the field, we got to work right away. We even floated a couple projects kind of as test balloons or trial balloons to get a feel for it, especially with that unique reimbursement model a lot of you are familiar with, I'm sure. Prior to LFPA arriving in the state, the Arizona Food Bank Network had a program and still has a program called Friends of the Farm, which has some state funding to do exactly this, farm to food assistance and local procurement. So we had great mentors and friends to help build this out and yeah, get it running. For our part at Pinnacle Prevention, we created a brand new program called Purchase Local Arizona. If you talk to any farmers, hopefully in Arizona, some of them will be familiar with PLAS, as we've shorthanded it. But PLAS or Purchase Local Arizona, working in tandem with the Friends of the Farm program, has been just a really eye-opening experience. The Friends of the Farm program, tied into Arizona Food Bank Network, has 5 main regional food banks statewide, but through their affiliates, there's close to 1,000 affiliate pantries and food banks statewide. And so, in my purview with Purchase Local Arizona, I've been able to tap into community-based organizations, nonprofits, mutual aid efforts and initiatives statewide, basically anyone outside of that, almost anyone outside of that food bank network in Arizona. And it's just been great. We've significantly expanded the Friends of the Farm program. My counterpart there, Erica, who's on the call today, has seen just incredible demand and has been able to meet it. Together, I think we've really demonstrated that Arizona, despite the challenges that Jesse alluded to, yes, we're a big state. It's 114,000 square miles. Yes, we have a unique climate. It's very hot in the summer, and we don't really quite have the cold chain infrastructure in place yet to get food to all the remote rural communities it needs to get to. Um, um, yeah, and we have interesting demographics. 67% of Arizonans are in Phoenix. So applying the various equity lenses we've tried to with LFPA in terms of the geography and social demographics and just even crop selection, we've learned a lot. So on the right-hand side, excuse me, on the right-hand side of this slide, this is current up through September or quarter 3 of this year. And these are the combined impacts of Purchase Local Arizona and the Friends of the Farm program. So working in tandem, Erica and I had been meeting weekly. We just recently stepped down to every 2 weeks or as needed, since we're kind of in that final 6 months of our 3-year LFPA grant. But you can see the numbers we put up so far, and we know we still have several months of work to do. But I think what we've demonstrated is our farmers, despite all the challenges, are just superb, and we're lucky to have them, and we want to continue to support them. So yeah, that's how LFPA is shaking out in real time in Arizona. And yeah, thank you very much. I also have a program year 2 impact report that we'll put in the follow-up, the recap email, but it's on our website, purchaselocalaz.org.
Thanks, Parker. I'm going to go quickly back to our agenda really quick. I know I flew through that. So we got welcome and introductions out of the way, and now we're going to switch into some updates and recaps. And so to start, and then after that, we'll go into reflecting and envisioning. We really would love to hear from all of you what's worked really well in this space and what we want to continue to do, and also where do we have some opportunities, especially as we close out this year and start anew. So we'll spend a little bit of time doing that. But first, I'm going to hand it over to our good friend Hannah at NSAC to give us a policy update.
Hi, folks. I was gonna try, let's see if I can, oh, I can share my screen. Let's see. This is gonna share my PDF. Thanks everyone. Sorry. Too many tabs, full disclosure. But thanks for having me back. I feel like I'm a frequent flyer here in this space with you all. And I am actively preparing to head to the Farmed Cafeteria Conference in a few weeks, where we'll be doing a policy working session there. So it was great timing because I was able to use some of that information that we're pulling together to offer it up here in this space as well. It has been a pretty grueling, past couple of months for all of you all, I know, on the ground, and really trying to figure out how in the heck you're gonna support families. And a lot happened pretty quickly, right? Like we federally and in DC, things came out over the weekend. Decisions were, already in place and rolling by by Monday, and things were official by I don't know, was it Wednesday or Thursday? So I wanted to just take a moment to kind of recap what is happening, where things stand for the next year, and then also just kind of provide a brief overview of what this really means and what kind of policies still potentially in play. So with the package that passed last week, of course, we reopened the government, but we also did so in many ways, the government funding was just kicked kind of further down the road, and decisions were kicked further down the road until January 20th, except where it relates for food and ag and FDA, which is good news for us. So USDA programs do have their funding approved, finalized, what we expect to see through September 30th of 2026. We also know those programs are not going to really be changing. So again, USDA programs, their rules are governed a lot largely by the Farm Bill. And in that, we also saw a continuation of our 2018 Farm Bill until September 30th of next year. And then, next year, my mind's already there. We have midterm elections, and then we have an entirely new Congress starting in 2027. So things are going to be moving and shifting. I don't know about y'all, but 2025 somehow was like the longest and shortest year at the same time. So to your point, Jesse, from earlier, it gives very 2020 vibes in some ways. So but this is just to kind of level set and clarify, what is happening with federal funding, and also kind of what to expect, changes or no changes for the next year. I did want to just highlight because there has been some more movement in kind of farm to food assistance space. We saw the Farm to School Act be introduced about like a little over a week ago. So what that would mean in both of those bills, it would increase the funding available for the Patrick Leahy Farm to School grants. So more funding, to schools and organizations and people that are implementing those projects. We're also going to see this is a little bit of this bill will be introduced by December 1st, and then I'm presenting these slides on December 2nd, so you're getting a little preview. But the Effective Food Procurement Act is also going to be introduced in the next 2 weeks, which if you may remember from last Congress, and it's a little different from like our Strengthening Local Food Security Act or the Local Farmers Feeding Our Communities Act, because in those bills, the funding got directly into the hands of states and community partners really on the ground. And the Effective Food Procurement Act is actually saying, hey, USDA, you've got to change the way you're buying food. So in that bill, it would direct USDA to develop a set of criteria. A lot of you will know this, kind of be familiar with it as considered values-based food purchasing. So they would have to set criteria for how they essentially evaluate every food purchase they make, and they'd have to adhere to criteria around racial equity, worker welfare, animal welfare, but also the practice of organic certifications and the environmental protections that are in place by producers themselves. So it would tell USDA you should be spending at least 20% of your food dollars by using these criteria and not just simply buying the cheapest food out there available. But what does it really mean for these bills in particular? We know we have a farm bill through, through September 30th next year. I think once we get past January, we'll kind of have a better sense of, are we going to have a farm bill early 2026? Are we going to potentially have a farm bill in the lame duck session of the late 2026? So that is still kind of unclear. But I think the one thing that I was going to take also to Farm to School or Farm to Cafeteria conference is the fact that like there's a lot of attention on USDA and the ways that communities are like operating their own food systems. And like we have to keep that attention and that momentum and the voices around all those issue areas pretty up and high, even though we might not have a farm bill like this year or soon. We have to keep the pressure. We have to keep all this conversation up about these foodways because that's the only way we'll continue to generate more attention and more press. Since the last time I was with y'all, the Local Farmers Feeding Our Communities Act has almost 60 co-sponsors now, and more than a third of those are Republican. So we're seeing like real bipartisan support on this issue, and we shouldn't let that disappear. So that's my spiel. That's my update. Keep doing the good work by keeping, attention on the issues. It's really you guys doing all that good work that is keeping the attention on the issues and sharing your story freely, both with local media and press, and your congressional members. But I think I probably tried to get in right in my time, but I can answer a question or so if folks have one.
Hannah, we've got a few questions in the
Chat.
chat.
Yes.
Do you have any idea when LFPP awards will be announced?
Second person that's asked me this today. I would think, no, but I'll ask. I'll try to find that out. That staff was able to continue working for the most part during the shutdown because they're funded through the Farm Bill versus an annual appropriation cycle. So I know that they were continuing to be making those decisions. I will let you all know that those decisions can no longer be made exclusively at the team level. They have to go higher, so they have to go to a political appointee to be approved, which is going to slow things down. So I do think we'll see slower award announcements and processes and potentially some really bad things, but we don't know quite yet because we just don't know what to expect. But I'll be sure to bring those updates the more I learn, and what we potentially see from that new kind of process. And see, there's a couple more questions.
Thanks, Hannah. I wonder, for the sake of time, if you would mind answering those in the chat.
Happy to do so.
Awesome. Thanks. So if you asked a question or are curious about one of the questions that were asked, just follow along in the chat to see what Hannah responds. All right. Back to you, Jesse.
Thank you, Hannah. Never enough time for policy, it seems like. Speaking of policy, we had a really lovely guest appearance last meeting from Andy and Samiha to talk a little bit about a project that they're working on. So wanted to offer them some space to give an update. So we will turn it over to them.
Yeah, thank you, and welcome Pinnacle to taking over FSLN. It's a good time or good facilitation to do. This is just going to be a quick pester. Last time we were here, we introduced a survey to collect some information related to not being on our back heels when LFPA advocacy picks up nationally, and really collecting information about how to activate and leverage our LFPA farmers to get their voices to local assemblies. So we put together a quick survey with the intention of trying to find the groups in this room who have collective impact data across the state. And then we can quickly, let me just show you what it looks like and how it's useful. Um, Basically, it's a quick spreadsheet. We're collecting information to find where the high value congressional districts are for LFPA, where the number of farms are high, so that when we get to advocacy, we can go to those districts and mobilize those farms. And we've organized it by state, ag committee, party. And then most importantly, we're collecting who can get a hold of those farms quickly rather than collecting individual farm information. We found this to be really helpful in our state during the freeze. We were able to quickly mobilize using this in the high impact districts. And our goal is to share this with Hannah at NSAC as well as collectively amongst ourselves for advocacy purposes. And we're also using it for our statewide efforts as we're putting together a budget ask in California. So it is really helpful in multiple ways. And lastly, like even as the advocacy effort might not be gearing up, this is a really good starting point for us to begin collectivizing LFPA impact data by really finding who in every state holds that and can share it so we can get a really up-to-date picture of impact. So we have a survey to quickly fill out. This is good for anyone to fill out, even if you're not the organization who's collecting collective impact data, because there's a section to pull from your brain to figure out who is and how we can get a hold of that. Right now, we have had like 10 states responded, and so I'll post those into the chat so you can see if you're not one of those states to try to fill this out. And it should really not take that long. Well, I don't know. It might. There's a spreadsheet upload that is how we collect the data. But most of you all had a pretty easy time. Those who filled it out had an easy time. So please, please, please try to fill this out. Even if you don't know if the survey is right for you, just give it a try. Should not take very long. And we did ask a question of what everyone's comfort level was sharing this, and pretty much everyone felt very comfortable sharing it directly with Hannah as is, and almost everyone felt comfortable sharing it with this group by invite only. So when we collect a little bit more information, we'll figure out the best way to share it. Thanks. And wait, did I put it in the chat yet? Cool.
Thanks, Andy. Sarah has a question.
Yes.
Hi, yes. And I know I asked Samiha this on email, but because I'm the holder of all things for Oregon, but then I've also subcontracted and I offered my services to those who have subcontracted to fill their forms out. So I'm going to upload my stuff and then do I refill out the Google form pretending that I'm them and then upload their farmer list? Or can I
Yeah,
how do I
I
do
would do it that way. So we just know who each organization is who can get a hold of those groups. And yeah, I would do it that way so we can
Okay. Versus just putting different tabs in the Excel spreadsheet for the orgs?
yeah, I guess just do it that way. Do it
Okay,
that's simplest for you and we can make it happen on our end. That's
cool.
a better solution.
Thank
And
you.
to Buck's question, you do not need to know your representatives. We on our end fill that out. You just need to upload the template spreadsheet, which is just basically a list of farms not identified by name and zip code. We will do all of the work of identifying the district. And then one other question was, wait.
I'll put in the chat all the states that have responded and the states that we still need responses from. I think that was the other question.
Yeah. Cool. And maybe we can just send Pinnacle the blurb again in your follow-up email so that it can go out to everyone. Reminder.
That'd be amazing. Thank you both so much.
And Hannah, I'm just going to share with you the sheet as is now.
Thank you both. If there's a couple other questions, please feel free to continue to pop them in the chat, and I'm sure Andy and Samiha can get them answered. And our last kind of touch base item on our agenda is just we know that there was a really great conference that some of you all just attended, so just wanted to offer a little bit of time to share some high-level reflections and takeaways from the Growing Stronger Communities Conference. So I'm going to kick it actually back over to Susan to get us started on that kind of quick follow-up, and then we'll get to some envisioning. So over to you, Susan.
Yeah, thanks. It's fun to see some of y'all back in the Zoom land after us being together in person. Rajesh and Hilda and Sarah and some other folks were there in person. And Margie. It was so fun actually being together in community in North Carolina. So just huge kudos to Rajesh and Charles and the whole team at Interfaith Food Shuttle for putting on what was a really, really well organized conference for the first of what will be, I think, 3 years that they'll be hosting this conference. So it was the Growing Stronger Communities Conference. I would just share quickly that, like, a high level, snapshot for me was like, we are in this together in terms of like folks coming from the charitable food system, food banking world, food pantries, and local farmers, food systems advocates, community food systems folks. Everyone's heart is in a very similar place, and there's still very real challenges in keeping this work moving forward. And I think that I was kind of touching, I felt that in a couple of different conversations where, like, we need some more time to really unpack some of the dynamics and challenges of particularly food banks getting more engaged in local food systems and how to be in right relationship with some of the food systems leaders who have been doing this work on the ground, have relationships, have been working on value chains, have a lot of expertise about how local and regional food systems work, how to weave those connections and that expertise together in new and improved ways, I think is one way I would put it. So that's what I kind of came out of the conversation feeling, is like, ooh, we got some really like juicy work that we can do together. So that's my high level reflections. And I know there's some other people in the call here that were there, so would love to hear from y'all too.
I'll just go because I was chatting with some other colleagues I have in Minnesota and Wisconsin about connecting with some people from the last day in Texas. And I know Hilda's on the call, but also from another food bank in Texas who just formed a food hub, which I'm really excited to understand the connection between food banks and food hubs. And so my colleague said, "Oh, Rajesh will be so excited to hear that you're connecting." So I wanted to say thanks, Rajesh, who is also the facilitator of my conversation in that space. But it was just really good to just feel the energy, even to just say hello to someone and kind of like buzz in the moment. And like that is fuel to take on the next, section of whatever this life is handing us right now. So thank you again for putting this on.
I can follow up as well. I just want to appreciate what you named, Susan, in terms of the dynamics of working within the charitable food space as well as working with food systems. I feel like what you named really reflects my experience. I now work for Feeding Texas, but I spent a long time working at a food systems organization. And so when I transitioned over, like, it was a big shock, for me to be received in community in the ways that I was received as a representative of the food banking space. But I totally understand why that is happening, and I've definitely personally have had experiences that would also, contribute to those sentiments. And so I really appreciate you naming that. That it's like I think it is about repair in some instances too. It's like, how do we repair and come, like you exactly as you said, come in right relationship, because we do have the same goals as the outcome. And the question is, how do we show up in these spaces so that we can bring our best selves and also support our communities in the best ways possible. So I really appreciate that. And I think that one of the pieces that I kind of we're left with just uncertain of is just around, like, how do we tell this story around why food systems are important to food banks whose primary role is to get food to people that are in need, right? And so I was really stumped at a question that one of the CEOs from San Antonio posed to us, which is like, what are the metrics that we are using? What is the ROI in my, like, hundreds of thousands of dollars of investment on food systems work when there are people that are hungry, and I could reinvest that money in a different way. And so that was, a big question that I'm still kind of grappling with. Yeah, and I'll just put it out there in case other folks are also grappling, have answers. That would be great. But yeah, thanks.
I'll just add thanks to everyone from this community who was able to attend. I see there's a note here from Delia. We were offering travel reimbursement for community members who would otherwise not have been able to attend. So I'll respond to your message directly in a second. I just saw a couple words of it. But yes, that was available. I think for me, what was really good to see was people reminding us all that the enemy is hunger and the enemy is poverty. And often the enemy can be perceived as each other. And for everyone said it already, I'm not going to repeat it. I don't come as a representative of a food bank. I'm an independent consultant brought in by a food shuttle to help them with this. But I did used to work at Feeding America National Office, so I understand. We were very proud that this was organized by a food bank that runs a farm and a food bank that is deeply embedded in community and local food systems relationships. That was the leading thing for us. It's a food bank that leads with equity, and that comes from a mindset of abundance, not scarcity. We heard a lot of that. I really hope that future conferences, and yes, we are going to run this for at least 2 more years, hopefully more than that. I hope that we can turn the great connections that were made into plans. And a couple of people said it. I was I was pretty strict on people on the last day to kind of make them actually think about what would you go away and do together. A lot of the time, people, given the challenges this sector faces, people, when they get together, they circle the drain and they talk about what's bad. I wanted to kind of reframe that to what are the assets that we have? How can we actually make things happen? So we're going to be sending out a survey to people who took part in the conference next week. Just been getting that together this week. And then part of my tasks early in the new year is to take the session content and actually turn those into kind of, highlight takeaways. I don't know what to call it because I don't know what's going to be yet, but short takeaways from each of the sessions that can be resources and reminders to people, just to keep people aware and help them keep each other honest and keep each other accountable and keep each other striving for more. And then we'll see you all hopefully in North Carolina, uh, probably early November. We'll try and avoid election day, but probably early November next year. Thanks so much.
Can I ask a question? Are we in a question mode or
Of me,
no,
um,
of actually the Pinnacles people?
Yeah, please do.
So when you were reviewing how you implemented LFPA in Arizona, with the Friends of the Farm existing program that you expanded and the Purchase Local Arizona program that you created, it's reminding me of my growing interest in exactly what Rajesh was just talking about, how there can be farms connected with food banks. And I wondered if you would give us a little more detail about the I guess the like outlines or the existing program, Friends of the Farm. Was that something that uh, was getting local farm produce to food banks already before LFPA? And um, what is the difference between that and Purchase Local Arizona?
Yeah, I can have Parker jump in real quick and share. And then that actually feels like a really good way to transition to getting you all envisioning. Like, I think these are some really, really good questions and just reflections from this conference, like really tee into where some of the topics, like I think that are already bubbling and surfacing. So I'm going to do those two things. So first I'll turn it over to Parker. And then if you don't mind also holding that question, I think it could be something broadly that we talk about in like maybe a future topic. And we'll have an area for you in a bit to type in that more specifically. So Parker, do you want to just take a quick little 30-second response to that?
Yeah, if 30 seconds. And I'd be remiss, especially knowing that Erica from Friends of the Farm is on the call here. But yeah, essentially, Friends of the Farm existed, I think, 4 or maybe 5 years before LFPA funds came to town in Arizona. So they had a lot of protocols and precedents that we could borrow and bend to make Purchase Local Arizona. But we definitely worked in tandem from the outset. Again, working within Erica and Friends of the Farm's established network of pantries and food banks and affiliates, and then me basically finding out who else is out there. Uh, and I think for us, like the base of farmers in Arizona was pretty small to begin with. And so there was a lot of coordination around who are you working with, the food banks, who has the scale. Um, and yeah, it's just been a collaborative process throughout. I'd say. So yeah, I love the idea of having Erica maybe join us soon to talk about that. But there were processes in place. Yeah, thanks to their depth of experience, and we looked to them, and then we split up. I think some of the procurement details, like who could afford to buy what, basically, with our budget allocation between their program and ours.
Jesse, you're on mute.
Thanks, Shelby. Um, Thank you for sharing and reflecting. Thanks for answering that, Parker. But most importantly, thanks for sharing a little about that conference. I saw multiple requests in the chat. As soon as you all know the next date, I feel like there'll be a heavy attendance, hopefully, from this group again. So thank you all. We are going to transition now into just like some reflecting and envisioning. And I'm going to turn it over to Parker and Shelby for that.
Okay. Yeah, so just a real brief summary here. It's a big membership today, and it's amazing. Like we said at the outset, it's just so exciting to be a part of this community for all the resources, wisdom, and support and encouragement. Um, and it's a relatively young community of practice. So I think in some of the documents that Shelby and Jesse and I have been looking over with Susan, I just wanted to share this screenshot from the FSLN discussion board. This post is from October 6th, 2022, and it was kind of in the midst of scoping the possibility of a community of practice around LFPA and just F2FA generally. So I just thought it was really funny in the bottom left-hand corner there, the one member at that time, um, which, isn't a probably profoundly accurate statistic in and of itself, but just a year later in 2023, it had grown to over 500. And when I sent out the welcome email earlier this week, there was over 900 people receiving that email. You almost broke my Outlook account. So I just think that's a tremendous indication of the growth and hopefully provides a reassurance that we're not alone in this work. I mean, it's daunting and times are challenging to say the least. But just to know that there's this robust and far-reaching network of us hopefully makes you feel like there's a really resilient community working around this. And so, yeah, the Paul Rudd GIF, if you'll pardon it, just look at us, growing over almost 1,000 active members. Um, so yeah, kudos to us. More to come in the future. Jesse, if you hit next. I think I just wanted to share this as well. So this was from 2022 in scoping the COP. This was the mission that was arrived at based on the opportunities and needs that were seen and felt, shared and discussed with folks at FSLN and the members at the time. And I think it's still really applicable. The goals of this community of practice are to develop connections, share learning among peers, and solve common challenges. I think writ large, we are doing that every time we meet. So we're happy to reflect, I think, just briefly on this slide with some of the ground that we all have covered, you all have covered. Um, um, I just pulled a random sampling really on this slide of, the work and discussion topics for these meetings in 2022, 23, 24, and then most recently from this year. And, as snapshots, like I say, the the challenges are myriad, ever present, and maybe just changing order of priority. But the work is also really complex. I mean, it's predicated on working relationships, personal relationships, many different actors in the food system space across supply chains, farmers, food banks, etc. So, yeah, just looking back over the documents that we are starting to navigate, it covered a lot of ground topic wise. So, if you can hit next, I did um, a little shortcut. I ran these topics, not just those ones on the previous slide, but I ran a lot of the topics as I distilled them through ChatGPT. And kudos to us. ChatGPT said, this is a strong mission aligned list of topics. So I think the work is very focused and I think draws in a lot of perspectives, and we want to keep doing that. So if you hit next again, Jesse. Um, this is just broad buckets. You can see the recurring themes that came up when I ran the things through the AI machine. It has a lot of F2FA stuff, obviously policy advocacy, food access, equity, and local procurement. But I think we can build out from these big bucket themes in a lot of directions that'll hopefully, yeah, empower us to meet the challenges of the time. I think there's one more. Nope, that's it. But I think I just wanted to provide that really broad overview and framework of where we've been, the things we've been in discussion around, and where we have opportunities to, yeah, continue drilling down, building on our skill sets and our resilience together.
Thanks, Parker. I'm going to kick it over to Shelby now. She's going to walk us through a little breakout activity that we're going to walk through.
Thanks, Jesse. Thanks, Parker. We've been talking a lot, and we want to hand it over to you all because we know that there is so much shared wisdom in this space, and we're really looking to you to help us shape our work together in the next 6 months and tell us where you want to go with this. So, as we've alluded to many times in this call already today, the food system and especially farm to food assistance, more specifically, has experienced a lot of shocks to the system lately. We have LFPA and LFPA ending. We have emergency food organizations that are seeing increased demand. And we know that things are changing rapidly day by day, and things are feeling a bit fraught at the moment. And so, with so much recent change, and as new facilitators in this space, we're really interested in learning how the COP can support you and your work around farm to food assistance for the next 6 months. So we're going to do a little breakout activity so that you all have the chance to talk about some of these things with your colleagues and peers in this space, and then hopefully bring some of those ideas back to us to help guide the work that we do and are planning for the next 6 months as facilitators in this space. So if you could go to the next slide. Sorry, one more. Perfect. So we're just going to do a 1 minute silent individual reflection before we put you into breakout rooms. And we would love for you to reflect on the following questions. When it comes to farm to food assistance, what is at the forefront of your mind right now? And how can the COP best support you and your work in the next 6 months? This could look like validation, connecting and networking with other folks in the space, or additional resources and inspiration that you would like to see brought to the forefront of this community. So I am going to set a 60-second timer. I know it's not a lot of time, but perfection is not the key here. So if you have any thoughts that jump to your mind as you think through these prompts, feel free to jot them down or just remember them for your conversations in a few minutes. And I will call us back once my timer is up in a minute.
And if you need some additional inspiration, as Susan says, the chat is hot today. So there's lots of already discussions around, I think, ideas, some contracts. So I think if you're looking for some inspiration and haven't taken a look at the chat in a minute, definitely check that out because there's some ideas already floating around that we're excited to capture.
All right, friends, a minute goes real quickly. We are going to come back. Thank you for indulging us in that silent reflection. And Jesse, if you'll just pop over to the next screen. We are going to open up breakout rooms that will have between 3 to 4 people in them. And if you're not able to participate today because you're driving or occupied with something else, please just come back to the main room here so that you can hang out with us until those breakout sessions are over. The first thing that we'll want you to do when you get into your breakout rooms is to assign a note taker. We have a shared Google Doc that we'll be using today to compile all of the wisdom and suggestions that you talk about in this space. And Jesse, just pop that in the chat if you want to open it up. So make sure that at least one person in your room is taking notes. You'll see that there are sections for each breakout room. And so if you're in breakout room number 3, for example, you'll want to take notes in section number 3 in that document. And then please take turns answering the following questions, the ones that we just reflected on. So when it comes to farm to food assistance, what is at the forefront of your mind right now? And how can the COP best support you and your work in the next 6 months? So I know it says 15 minutes here. There was so many wonderful things to be said at this meeting today, so we're going to just shorten that to 10 minutes together. We'll be sure to give you reminders in the chat so that you know what the timing is like and you know to switch and make sure that everybody has the chance to share. And without further ado, I think we're ready to get into breakout rooms whenever those are ready for us. All right. You should see a pop-up on your screen and you can go ahead and join.
If anybody's having trouble getting to their breakout room, just let me know and I can help you out. And if you're planning on just staying in the main room, if you could just let me know so that I can make sure that each of the rooms has enough people in them.
Any more faces? Love to see those. I hope that you had some fruitful conversations with folks in your group. We get to spend a few more minutes before we close out for the day doing a brief reflection and sharing back what you talked about. So, Parker, would you like to lead us through our last large group debrief for the day?
Sure. Yeah, thanks everybody for hanging out. We're closing in on it. Yeah, let me find my spot here. Uh, so yeah, hopefully that was fruitful. I saw a lot of activity in the shared document. Um, let's see. We're gonna try to figure out if everyone's looking at that document still. Does everybody have shared access to it? Or are we synthesizing?
No, I think we're just gonna prompt if people are able to take a scroll through some of the things that are coming up in other groups. We are gonna do a later synthesis of this as a facilitation team. So, but just thought if you could take a brief scroll and share, you can come off mute and share or put it in the chat things that you're observing in some of the other groups that you're like, oh, that's good, we didn't get to that, or like maybe it's hey, that came up in our group as well. So maybe like you can add a little note like, hey, +1. So
Yeah.
feel free. There's not any right rules or right or wrong here, but just any reflections, similarities, places you're seeing validation already is always nice. Things you're holding curiosity about, like maybe you see something like, what's that mean? Or just like other questions that are coming up for you. So we'll just take about like 7 more minutes and just allow people to come off mute and share. Or if you just want to share what you talked about in your group, that's great too.
Thanks, Jesse.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll chime in and just see like a little bit of a theme here is like around kind of like gathering what we learned from LFPA and being able to channel that into in some ways almost like preparation for when we get permanent funding because we will being ready for that next round. I know that, for for most folks here, when that hit, it was like you had to build the plane while flying it. And so being able to sort of step back in this moment and do a little bit of that synthesis and planning ahead, that's something that I'm seeing here.
Thanks, Susan. How about others? What's coming up? What are you all seeing, or what did you all talk about that you'd like to share?
I can share on behalf of my group, which was with Oregon and Illinois, and I'm from California. I think we all resonated on like how do we not lose the momentum of, having built these structures where prior to LFPA there wasn't necessarily a cohesive statewide effort for local food procurement. So how do we make sure we're not losing that momentum when it closes, even if we are advocating for statewide programs or there is a federal program, there's almost certainly going to be a gap in funding for this. So thinking about just not losing the momentum for farms, not losing the momentum of the structures we built, not losing those connections, not losing like the value chain coordination connections. Yeah, and I think generally we're hoping just that this community of practice can be a space of sharing and learning from other states and like hearing each of our nuanced specific ways of bridging those gaps while meeting like a similar challenge. But obviously we all face unique challenges. And I think something personally for me is just also thinking about how this space can continue to be a source of inspiration and really like uplifting the collaborative efforts that we do. Something that's really top of mind for me is just the onslaught of like violence right now in our communities in terms of ICE and many communities not being able to get food, which we talked about at the beginning. So just thinking about like, oh, can this be a space to share and vent, or like we collectively experience this frustration and grief, and also it's a space for inspiration.
Oh, thanks, Samiha. That was lovely. And like, yeah, just a good reminder of just sometimes having a space to like process that together is so important. When it like reminded me of something that was said in one of the groups with the group that I was in, and it was like how to not let the relationships run cold. And that like it just hit me like right in the heart, hearing that, because that's like so much of what has been built here is on these like warm relationships. So thanks for sharing that. Any other reflections people are having at this moment? All right. Well, I say things come, please feel free to pop them in the chat. I appreciate this. As Shelby said, you all are great note takers. This is so amazing, and we have so much to work with. This is exactly what, we wanted to leave the space with, is just getting a real quick pulse check on where you all were at and have a lot of synthesis that we can do. We are also going to pop one more opportunity in the chat. We will place it in our recap email as well. But we are going to just do a quick survey. We know that there's many people who are not in this room with us today that we also want to hear from. And so it's just a quick, again, really wanting to get the pulse of where the community is and where we're finding and feeling energy so that we can continue to move forward in those directions. So we will be launching a quick survey that we'll collect over the next month and share some of those out in January and maybe a little bit in December to see how the responses are going. But just again, really looking for like additional topics you're thinking of. So our ask to you all is you don't have to fill out the whole survey, but if you leave this space today and you're like, oh, I just thought of a really cool topic. There's going to be that link. You can just go right to that section and just like pop the topic idea in there. That would be so welcomed from all of you. And also, like, if you have speakers that you would love to hear from, I already have Erica possibly as someone that from the Friends of the Farm program. It sounds like, just how that where that program, the future of that's going to be after LFPA. So things like that, if you've got speakers in mind that you're thinking of, we'd love to hear them so that we could welcome them into this space as well. And then importantly, there's a last question on the survey that's like, who's not here? So we do have a very robust listserv, and we know that they can't always make this room. And so we're trying to think of other people that we can continue to grow and build out this, especially I think as we lean into these moments of scarcity in terms of funding and sustainability, like really thinking about how do we form those new relationships so that we can be more innovative in our thinking. I think that's going to be a real big theme for 2026. So with that, I know we have about 5 minutes left, so we'll just offer a couple of things. Here's our emails for Parker and Shelby and myself. Parker's going to be the one to kind of be facilitating and handling the listserv via email, but Shelby and myself are also here. Of course, Susan is the historical wealth of knowledge of this group. So there's Susan's, you know how to get a hold of Susan as well, but wanted to offer that. But just wanted to take the last like 3 or 4 minutes or so if you all would love to share any ahas you have in the chat or any rounds of encouragements, any positivities. If it's just emoji you want to throw up, that's cool too. We welcome that. Also, if you're new, if this is your first day, welcome. And also, we do have a collective playlist, which you heard on the way in, that has been built over the last couple of years. So if you have a song you'd like to drop, we'd love to hear that as well. So any reflections as you are leaving the space today? Again, that could be ahas in the chat, rounds of applause or words of encouragement, and then any song recommendations. And also just love, love, love Susan for the prouds of that she's already collected from what we shared at the beginning. So thank you, Susan. Thank you for sharing that with all of us.